Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Dr. Jeff May, your host of Doctor's Orders Advice you should actually take. And in this episode, it's going to be powerful. It's going to be a good one. In this episode, we are talking about getting off your ass. Get off your ass and move it. I know. Some of you are like, oh, my ears are bleeding because you said ass. Well, guess what? Your life is shorter because you won't get off of it. And that's a fact. And so when we look into today's episode, it's all about combating that sedentary mindset, that sedentary lifestyle. You see, it was interesting. Before this episode, I was reading some stats and I was going over some lifestyle diseases and looking at the fact that the number one killer of Americans is actually what we do in terms of what we do every day, how we take care of ourselves. Realize we're killing ourselves. Most of the time, it's like the diseases we succumb to. Diabetes, cancer, heart disease, obesity, all of those things are a result of the choices that we make throughout our life. You see, there's no program in your cells to actually be worse off. It's usually the fact of the matter is that when you get sick, it's because you weren't given something you need or you were given too much of what you don't need, aka probably the number one out there that nobody wants to talk about. Well, there's a lot of people talking about it, but no one wants to really do it. Is sugar, what you're putting in your body in terms of fuel. And so in this episode, I want to hit hard. I want to just hold up a mirror and say, what are you doing in your life? Are you sitting there slowly killing yourself, sitting on your ass, not doing anything? Did you realize the minimum requirements, only about 20% of people will make the minimum movement requirements each day. And less than 5% of people actually move consistently 30 minutes, like 30 minutes of activity a day. Less than 5% of people have 30 minutes of activity a day. What does this mean? It means that we are becoming slower, fatter, more fatigued, all of these things because we just don't move our bodies. The fact of the matter is your body was made to move, and we sit behind a computer desk for 8 to 10 hours and call that work. And I realize that some of us, that's a reality of work. I'm not blaming that. I'm saying then we go home, sit in front of another computer that we call the TV, or frankly, another computer, and we'll sit and we'll watch and we'll watch and we'll watch and we'll watch, and we won't move our bodies. And then we go to bed. And then we wake up magically hoping that tomorrow will be better. When in all reality, what we do is we turn to food. We actually turn to our fuel source as a source of fun, as a source of fulfillment. So we go in looking for fun and looking for fulfillment. And listen, I'm all about living an advantage life, living a life where you're healthier, happier, more productive. That is the name of the game for me. But when we turn and go to our fuel, aka our food, and try and put that in place of fun and fulfillment, what we end up is becoming fat. And that's just the way it is. Some people don't want to hear the words. Like, listen, I was skinny fat for a long time. What do I mean? I was more sedentary. I remember going through chiropractic college, like doing all these things, and we were studying. We had 30 credit hours a week. It was nearly a full-time job. And that was without studying. And all of these excuses come up. And I realized, man, I can't even, I'm having a trouble. If I had to run 3 miles right now, would I make it? I played this scenario out in my head. If somebody was that I cared about and that I loved was going to be shot and killed 3 miles away, if I couldn't run there, what would happen? And so you start to play these things out in your head. And I realize, some people are like, well, Dr. Jeff, you're pretty extreme. You're pretty extreme when you think about these things. It's like I think about this all day because I have patients in my office every day during the week that are battling these scenarios. Just yesterday, Dr. Tyler had a conversation with a patient, and this patient is at the crossroads. They've done a lot of good things. They actually were able to put off a knee surgery. So many cool things are happening for them in life, but they are realizing that they are going to have to change their fuel and how they look at their body when it comes to food in order to continue the results. Because what happens is that when someone starts to feel better, they get all joyous, they get all excited, and they're like, yes, I finally have hope. But then they turn to the old habits, and they'll start feeding themselves full of sugar, drinking every night, 2 or 3 drinks. Oh, it's just 2 or 3 beers, Dr. Jeff. Yeah, well, that's 2 or 3 beers. That's 2 or 3 12 ounces at a time. That's 36 ounces at a time that you're fueling inflammation in your body. You wonder why your knee hurts again. And so unless you're willing to look in the mirror and face these things, ultimately you're always going to suffer. And we don't realize it right away. We'll just sedate a little bit more. We'll just eat a little bit more sugar. We'll maybe find a new series on Netflix. In fact, better yet, I'll ask all my friends on Facebook, what's a good new series so I can sit more? And the cycle continues until you wake up 40 pounds overweight. You're in the obese category. Your BMI is off the charts. You realize that your hormones are jacked. You realize that your digestion is also screwed up. Your sleep pattern sucks, and your immune system is garbage. This is the pattern that most people will also end up. And then they show up in my front door and they're like, hey, you know what? I just think I have a bone out of place because it hurts between my shoulder blades. Can you just put it back in? Can you just pop it? Can you just crack my back? And then it'll magically all feel better. Well, welcome to 2023 when it comes to healthcare. You see, we got to rewind the clock. We got to realize that your body was literally made to be healthy. There's no program in your brain. I tell patients this all the time. There's no program in your brain for headaches. There's no program in your brain that wants to make you sick. There's no program in the brain that wants to make you fat. There's none of these things. They do not exist. And so what happens if we were to turn off the lights in the room that I was in? And in order to make it bright, we would have to add light. We would have to add the good. So in this analogy, when it comes to our health, we really can't add, sickness to our life, but we can take away the good things. We can take away the light. Like if you were to make this room dark, you have to remove the light. You don't add darkness. And the concept is in your health, how we become sick, how we become less functional, how we become fat, fatigued, diabetic. A lot of these lifestyle choices is that you don't actually add sickness. You're just removing the things that actually make you healthy. So sedentary lifestyles. Remember, 5% of people move and get adequate movement for only 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day. Do you realize like 30 minutes a day is such a low ask? Like the bar is set so low, and yet we make excuses. We'll sit there and be like, you don't understand, blah, 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 this, and this. Listen, I run a company. I've got about 3 other companies that I'm involved in. I've got 4 kids. I've got an amazing wife. Let's sit down and let's talk about schedules. Let's talk about functionality. Let's talk about like how quote unquote busy we are, and realize that, okay, well, is it you're really that busy, or you just don't put the value on you? For a lot of us, it could just be that you just don't value yourself enough to do what's required. And you're like, I get it. Do it anyway. Whatever your excuse is, so what? Like if you were to just say, well, my schedule is really, really busy, but you added 2 words, so what, or what now? Like you can add a lot of things, but what? But what, your health isn't important? So you would rather sacrifice now. Think about this. You're giving so many good moments and energy and health and parts of your life to a company that will not care for you after you die. For a lot of people, if you're working a 9 to 5, when you die, that company rolls on. Sure, they may send you a condolence card, send your family, a plant at the funeral, but ultimately life moves on. And so you look back and what you've given that company. Why not give that same amount of effort and energy to yourself? How would you show up at the company? How would you show up for your family? How would you show up for your relationships if you actually put yourself first and started moving 30 minutes a day? 30 minutes a day, 5% of Americans. In fact, that's my challenge for you today. If you're hearing my voice, wherever you listen to this podcast or not, 2 things. 1, share it, and 2, move your ass 30 minutes a day. Can you do that? Can you move 30 minutes a day? And if you can, you will become one of the 5% that actually realizes that, you know what? Its age is pretty much a number. Yeah, there's things that change across your age, but so many people want to play the age card. Oh, I'm getting older. Oh, I'm 40. Oh, I'm 50. Oh, I'm 60. Listen, there's 40, 50, and 60-year-olds that will kick your butt in many, many categories. So is it really that age, or is it your excuses? Is it your stories? So you're either going to get off your butt and do something, or you're going to continue to sit on your butt, and you're going to get what everybody else gets that just sits on their butt. They get more sickness, more disease, fat, fatigued, overweight, tired, stressed out, broken relationships, broken homes, depressed, anxiety. That's the result of being sedentary. And we're just talking about one thing. So what happens if you change 2 things? What happens, oh my gosh, Dr. Jeff, if I start moving 30 minutes a day and I start cutting out sugar? Well, that, my friends, I'm going to leave up to you. What do you think will happen? I'm going to ask you this one question. Do you think it'll be better or worse? And if it's better, why aren't you doing it? Those are the questions you need to ask, and that's your assignment this week as we drop those doctor's orders out there and get after it, all right? So make sure, ask yourself those questions. Get after it. Do the work. Don't be afraid. Stop sucking and start thriving. We'll talk to you soon.